May 14, 1992. 30 FBI agents and the National Guard surround the building in South Dakota. They were not there for drugs, not for money, not for guns. They came to seize a dinosaur. Here is what nobody tells you about dinosaurs. You can find one. You can dig it out of a hillside with your own hands, pay for every hour of it, and still not own a single bone. Not the skull. Not one tooth. This is a 25-cent piece from Canada. The animal on it is called Albertosaurus, and it is a tyrannosaur. Real ones came out of one river valley in Alberta, and some of them left the country in freight cars. This coin is the only Albertosaurus a private person is allowed to keep. Stay with me and I will show you what that costs. June 9th, 1884. A survey party is working along the Red Deer River in what is now Alberta. The man in charge is 25 years old. His name is Joseph Burr Tyrrell, and Ottawa did not send him to look for dinosaurs. Ottawa sent him to look for coal. He climbs a slope, and at eye level in the face of the hill, something is looking back at him. It is a skull, not a buffalo, not a bear. The jaw is longer than his arm, and the teeth are serrated like steak knives. Tyrrell found his coal, and the coal built a town, but the skull built something else. That skull sat in a drawer for 21 years before anybody gave it a name. In 1905, a man called Henry Fairfield Osborne described it. He did it in a single page, tacked onto the end of a paper about something else. He called it Albertosaurus sarcophagus. The second word is the one people skip over. Sarcophagus is Greek and it means flesh eater. So this is a tyrannosaur, around 9 meters long, built lighter and faster than its famous cousin, hunting that valley 70 million years ago. And here's the part that decides the next 100 years. Where there was one, there were more. Now the Americans arrive. In 1910, a man built himself a flat-bottomed barge. He loaded with tents and plaster and dynamite and floated down the Red Deer River. His name is Barnum Brown. 8 years earlier, he had pulled the first Tyrannosaurus rex out of Montana, which made him, at that moment, the most successful fossil hunter alive. He is working for the American Museum of Natural History in New York. And he is very good at his job. That is the problem. Everything he finds, he ships. And Canada has no law that says he cannot. Within 5 years, the American Museum alone had taken enough bone out of Alberta to fill 3.5 freight cars. Ottawa noticed late, and its answer was to hire a rival. Charles Sternberg, a working collector with 3 sons, sent out to dig for the National Museum before the Americans got there first. So for 6 seasons, 2 barges worked the same river, Brown upstream, Sternberg downstream. Both of them digging, both of them shipping, and both of them perfectly polite about the imprint. Sternberg wrote a book about those years. Brown wrote almost nothing at all. That turns out to matter. Here is the part that still stings in Alberta. Almost nothing those 2 barges dug up stayed in the country. Brown's material went to New York. Sternberg's went east to Ottawa. Apart from 2 seasons, his son George ran for the University of Alberta. The province that grew the animals kept almost none of them. Canadian institutions did not become the main collectors in their own badlands until the late 1950s. That is 50 years of watching your own ground leave by rail, and the only running account of those seasons from the Canadian side is a book. Sternberg published it himself in 1917 with 52 photographs in it. Brown's version of the same river never got written. August 11, 1910. Brown is working a slope above the river and he finds something nobody had ever seen. Not one, Albertosaurus. A pile of them. Adults, half-grown animals, juveniles, all in the same layer of rock, all in one hillside. Understand what that means. Big predators die alone. That is the rule, and this broke it. This was a group. Brown collected what he wanted, loaded it, and went back to New York. He published almost nothing about the place. He did not put it on a map. He never went back. And then the hillside disappeared. One more thing about Barnum Brown, because it changes how you read everything else he did. He was not only a fossil hunter. oil companies paid him to look at rock while he was out there, and he took the money. In the 1930s, he wrote dinosaur booklets for Sinclair Oil, and Sinclair paid for his digs. During both world wars, he fed information to American intelligence, including the office that later grew into the CIA. The man on the barge was collecting more than bones. To see why any of these matters now, watch what his skeleton costs. In 1997, Sue set the record at $8.36 million, and people called that insane. In 2020, a T-Rex called Stan went for $31.8 million. In 2024, a Stegosaurus called Apex went hedge fund billionaire for $44.6 million. Read those three numbers in order. The price of a dead animal has multiplied by 5 inside a single working lifetime. And every one of those jumps was made by a private buyer, not by a museum. Museums stopped being able to bid a long time ago. Now jump to last month, July 14th, 2026, Sotheby's in New York. A Tyrannosaurus rex called Gus goes under the hammer. 38 feet long, 67 million years old, dug out of South Dakota. The estimate was $20 to $30 million. 7 bidders went at it for 10 minutes. It sold for $50,100,000. And the buyer did not give a name. Suppose it is a museum quietly doing the right thing. Fine, suppose instead it is a hallway in a house nobody will ever visit. Scientists said out loud that this animal may never be studied again. This argument is not new, and it has been settled with guns before. August 12, 1990. A field worker named Sue Hendrickson walks along a cliff in South Dakota and sees vertebrae sticking out of it. What comes out of that hill is the most complete adult Tyrannosaurus rex anyone has ever found, and they name it after her. Then the federal government decides those bones came off land. It holds in trust. And on the 14th of May 1992, more than 30 FBI agents and the National Guard drive into town. The neighbors formed a human chain around the building. It did not help. Here is where almost everybody gets the ending wrong. The story goes that the man who dug Sue up went to prison for stealing her. He did not. Peter Larson was tried on dozens of counts, and the jury cleared him of everything that touched that dinosaur. What convicted him was a fossil worth less than $100, taken off federal land. That and cash he carried abroad without writing it on a customs form. 24 months. For paperwork, Sue sold at auction in '97 for $8,360,000, and Larson watched that from a cell. If you want to know where the line actually sits, read a court file. In May 2012, a Florida dealer named Eric Procopi put a Tyrannosaurus bataar skeleton into a New York auction. It sold for $1,050,000. Mongolia said that animal could only have come out of the Gobi Desert, and the Gobi is Mongolia. Procopi had written something rather different on the customs paperwork coming in from Britain. He pleaded guilty. He handed back that skeleton, a second bataar, a Saurolophus, and an oviraptor. The bones flew home to Mongolia in crates. Which brings us back to a hillside in Alberta that nobody could find for most of a century. Brown left no map, but he did leave photographs, field photographs taken in 1910 of a slope and a skyline. In the 1990s, a paleontologist called Philip Curry went out with those pictures in his hand. He matched the horizon in them to the ground in front of him. He found it. They have been digging it ever since. 1,128 Albertosaurus bones out of that one bed. It is the biggest pile of big predator bones from the age of dinosaurs anywhere on Earth. Now about the object in my hand, because the myth has formed here. In 2012, Canada struck a quarter with a Tyrannosaurus on it that glowed in the dark. 25,000 pieces. The first coin on Earth that did that, and it won an award for being clever. They sold out, and collectors still chase them. This one does not glow. This one is plain nickel-plated steel. From a 3-coin set in 2019, 100,000 made. Artwork by Julius Cuccioni. Nobody wrote articles about it. It is the boring one in the family, and it is the one that ended up sealed in plastic with a number on it, and you cannot have any of the real thing. Alberta settled that in law. A fossil in the ground there belongs to the Crown, whoever owns the field on top of it. Carry one across the provincial line and you are looking at $50,000 in a year inside. That is the entire difference. Gus came off private land in South Dakota, so Gus could be sold. Move the same animal north and $50 million buys you nothing at all. So here is my Albertosaurus. 4.4 grams, $8. 64 of them exist in this grade and not one grades higher. And it is legally completely mine. So that is the deal. A tyrannosaur you are allowed to hold on the condition that it is flat and weighs 4 grams. I find that funnier than I probably should. If you want the same machine running on metal instead of bone, watch the one I made about the Viking horde. 270 coins that are still missing, and the only men who know where they went are sitting in prison. Same rule, different century. Finding a thing and owning a thing have never been the same question. Subscribe, because there's more of this on my desk.